still a bit more of ostensibly addressing you find people in TV land. Sort of talking about, for those who seem to enjoy watching this and still have some question as to what it's about, and for the last few nights I was even trying to drag out a certain kind of almost parallel in the great realm of religion. And don't write, this has nothing to do with religion, we're not even close. But it all has to do, as everything else, including used car lights, have to do with the nervous system of man in its forever state of incompletion, unless you're lucky enough, of course, to be dead. Then this has no application to you, and you don't have to tithe, and you don't have to show up on Saturday or Sunday or Tuesday or whatever day of the week you've got religious services. All right. It all has to do, for those of you keeping track, I guess, in the last 2 weeks, again, we're up to, who knows what, several hundred times of issuing the great warning that do not take this as an attack on religion. Mark it down again. It is simply this, that religion continues to be the living, walking, swaggering example, living example, the institution, the phenomenon, not good or bad, not right or wrong, but the epitome of the living example of man's incompleteness and its reflection in the world. In other words, it's proof. It's the other side of the equation. You don't have to be involved with religion, and you certainly don't have to be involved with being a critic of religion unless you've said in something. I couldn't help quoting Kairoot. It represents, before your very eyes, man's incompletion. And the way it comes out, what I was saying was somewhat of a parallel, and went through that little piece of theatrical business. I was going parallel because this is not really a parallel, but last time, as I was pointing out, there is a certain kind of similarity in that religion started out attempting to dance with the question of what's the meaning of life. Let's go back to that one as being the great 4-in-1 lubricant question to the human mind. That it all comes down to, what the hell's going on, which is not perhaps quite as academically well put. It was good enough for Nietzsche. Plus, anybody with a damn weird name like that, anything's good enough for him. But at any rate, the question about what's the meaning of life, that's where religion starts. Religion does not know because no one knows. Just because you got 40 billion people who don't know, and you put them all together and dress them up funny and give them a bunch of rituals and tell them, get together every Wednesday afternoon and have some kind of prayer meeting, that doesn't mean that now the 40 million people that didn't know now know. Oh, you didn't know that? I'm sorry to the people out there. But the question starts out, let us say, what's the meaning of life? Religion doesn't know. No one knows. Out in the ordinary world, the human nervous system doesn't know. And so they're left somewhat, if you follow this, when I said there was a certain kind of parallel, that this seems to be incomprehensible to some people. They're supposed to not even bother with it, but some people seem to enjoy it, and you kind of skate up to the edge of it, and then you think, well, it's incomprehensible, or it's foolishness. And then you wander off, and you come skating back, and you wonder, is Rosalind open on the weekend? Is Buddha going to be here? Is it going to be Tito Parente again with that pickup band? But people keep skating up to the edge and think, well, perhaps I will dance. And they get close to it, and they think, Jesus Christ, that's the damnedest music. And it's like a bunch of Chinese waiters dropped trays in the back, and suddenly here I am trying to dance to it. And then they wander off, and then they come back. Don't any Latin music fans, any people of Oriental persuasion, any religious people, don't anybody write me. Unless you're going to send money, and then, of course, you're welcome to write. But they do not know the answer And I was pointing out last time is then you step into this marvelous world of faith, which is not an attack. And that's easy to attack faith. But tonight I want to drag you into something to where in religion, dances in everybody's face, and they just do not see it. And all this is representing the human nervous system here. And one more time, you do not have to be religious, and if you have any potential of being a rebel and listening to this, you got to forget everything. Forget whether you are a Baptist, whether you're an anti-Baptist, whether you're a Presbyterian, a Jew, whether you're an atheist. Forget all that. Religion is simply a word. Religion represents your own nervous system, or you wouldn't be watching this even for a second. You wouldn't even be alive. It's your own nervous system going, damn, trying to sit in it, trying to scratch. And religion is the attempt to go, there, you know. Certain parts of life's body, it makes Muslims go, ooh, that's where I scratch. And it makes Jews go, oh, and Buddhists go. It's all the same thing. So it's attempting to scratch it, but it's got no name for it. That's why, of course, all religions must have a name. Yes, we're Baptist with a big B. We're Methodist with a big M. Is they have to have a name because they've got nothing else. It's not just religion, it's everything else. Yes, I'm a college. Well, do you know the meaning of life? No, that's why I am a college. In fact, now that you ask me, I am a university. I've improved. Well, do you now know? You used to be a college when I first asked, yes. And you didn't know the meaning of life, no. I mean, you knew all this other stuff. You could teach me equations and chemical formulas. Oh, yes, we can still do that. But do you know the meaning of life? No, but I'm now a university. That is with a capital U. Same thing with all religions. Since nobody knows, and that's, of course, another reason that humans have names, by the way. At least you think we're laughing at the great bastions of higher education or religion. That's why humans have names. That's why humans talk about themselves the same way that colleges do. You just never heard them do it. You thought it was somebody else. But that's why everybody says, yeah, I'm Bunky Oldham. I'm glad you asked. Yeah? Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. And then they will be delighted to talk about themselves. Not because they're egomaniacs and not because they're pretentious. It's because they're alive. It's because they're itching and do not know where to scratch. It's because they're a church without a name. They're a religion without an answer. And you say, who are you? And everybody will tell you. But look at the question, who are you, is the same kind of question about what's the meaning of life, which is what you're always asking. To ask somebody, somebody looks like they're doing something important or saying something. They look like, yes, I'm on television and I have on a loud shirt. Or yes, I'm a minister and I'm dressed up in a subdued, albeit rather ridiculous outfit. Or I have no commerce or intercourse, pardon the expression, with religion. I'm beyond all that. I am a college, if you'll notice the attractive ivory going up the sides of, and I am full, covered by traditions. They are talking. Humans talk. Every time somebody says yes, that's very interesting what you just said, because that reminds me of something I have thought about before. They are addressing the issue of what's the meaning of life by admitting, yes, I don't know. That's why I am a church. That is why I am me. That's why I am known as Oldham. B. Oldham, Bunky, to my friend. And I'll tell you what I think about it. It is addressing the issue. If you're ordinary and following into this, there's a laugh. If you're ordinary and followed into that, you could, assuming that you had not set in it seriously enough that you couldn't stand up in public and say anything, you could state that, well, what you're calling addressing the matter is actually people covering it up. You follow? That would be an easy way, and I only throw that in so that I don't have to say that I actually said it, because you should have already thought it, that that's the way the ordinary mind would work. Is yes, people say universities, institutions, religions, people say, so you don't know the meaning of life. Aha, what you want to know is the meaning of the Jewish life, the meaning of the Buddhist life. And somebody, maybe on a weekday, would finally go, well, hell, I've been looking for 40 years for the meaning of life, so all right, hell, tell me the meaning of the Buddhist life then. And see, then they don't have to, because they do not know, but they say, all right, what we have is the Buddhist attitude toward that question. And then they lead you on. And of course, you can't, the ordinary mind wouldn't push any further there, because then you got to say, well, what's the Buddhist response to the question? Is that we still don't know. But we're Buddhist. And so, you spent 40 years looking. The guy goes, yeah. All right, you want to spend another 40 years? The guy goes, Jesus, I'm getting tired. My enzymes and hormones are getting real frayed around the edge. Well, why don't you just rest here and become a Buddhist? Or a Presbyterian? Or go back to school, become an accountant. It is all addressing the question of what's the meaning, and nobody knows. And back where I was, speaking as an ordinary person following this, they could say, well, that's simply a cover-up. You're saying addressing the issue, they're covering it up. All right, call it cover-up for a second, to be critical. Did everybody call it that? Now, may I ask you this, as opposed to what? Of course, you're still ordinary. You can say, well, they're covering it up. And you're saying as opposed to what? As opposed to them understanding what's going on. And then I would say to the ordinary person, you mean like you? And then let's assume that in some way, in a temporary, insane moment of lucidity, they'd go, well, no, not me. And so then I could say, well, to whom do you refer? And again, let's say at this splitting second of lucidity stretched out, and they would have to go, nobody. But there you are. You're not? Well. In other words, people saying, let me try it another way, since I got you into this, if I did. If the question is, again, just what's the meaning of life? And everyone's response, from individuals to institutions, and of course you're just talking about the spectrum of life itself, assuming that your mind is intact, then man is the end of every spectrum known. But if you were being able to think to that degree, and the question was, what's the meaning of life? And then I pointed out that all individuals, all institutions, respond, in a sense, by saying what kind of guy they are, by telling you their name. And I'm saying that's addressing the issue. In other words, if you ask a church, if you find this great religious body, or you just find 40 million people out there in the field, huddled together, if you're sane, you immediately recognize, you don't have to know, you're immediately drawn to them, and you immediately would assume that they are religious. That's the only reason 40 million people will be together. And so you go over and you say, and you would tacitly offer on this basis that they must know. Why else would 40 million people be standing the fuck together? Separate. At least a foot away from these other 40 million. And so you approach and you say, the meaning of life, the meaning of life. And all 40 million of them go, knowingly. You say, all right, what is it? And then they would go, do you know who we are? And you'd say, well, no. And they'd say, we are, and then fill in the blank. We are university trained. We are Hindus. We're Unitarians. We are the Loyal Order of Moose, or whatever they are. I want you to follow it, because this is the way life works. It's not a joke and it's not a trick. Now, I'm saying that's addressing the issue, and what I was trying to get you to see that may have got even more convoluted to some people is if you're ordinary and you heard that, you say, all right, all you're saying is this a cover-up. You're just saying that churches, people, since they don't know what the hell is going on, then they cover it up by dressing up and by being somebody and wearing name tags, and that churches, the great, I'm still speaking for ordinary mind, they say they are the great felonious executors of dressing up, building these huge buildings, having all these kind of rigmarole and these rituals, and they're doing it to cover up the fact that they do not know what the hell is going on. They do not know the answer to the question that everybody wants to know. That's all you're saying, they could say to me. And what I'm pointing out, see, from an ordinary view, that's quite valid. I mean, that's as old as people, not just the hills, but people who live in the hills, which is even older. To take a shot at religion and everybody else and say, well, all right, they get all dressed up. the Pope, for instance, jump on him again. He's one of the easiest. That look at that, the head of the largest institution on this planet. I guess other than people that go to hookers. I hadn't seen this year's almanac. I can't keep up anymore. But the Catholic Church, and here, the Lord. By the way, as far as I know, I didn't insinuate there was any correlation between the two. Of course, if there is, that would account for what I understand is the booming trade in such ways of the flesh. But is there any chance there's one woman somewhere servicing the whole Catholic? No. Back to what I was going to say right quick, I still was afraid too many people miss this. You could say, all right, the largest institution on this planet, and look at the rituals, the church, or the Greek Orthodox. I just keep picking out the Pope and the Catholic Church. And you could say, if you were following this to some degree, if you're ordinary and you were just following the words, you'd say, all right, all you're pointing out is that they cover up the fact that they do not know what's going on, not in the sense about what's the meaning of life, which is where we started. That the church does not know, and so they're covering it up in a sense. We're all playing along with it in some way, because now they've got these horrendously impressive buildings. I guess you can delete horrendous. These buildings, they've got all these rituals. They dress up in funny clothes. The more deeply they are involved in it, the higher they move up in the hierarchy of the organization, the funnier they dress. And they get the clothes up to here, and then they wear masks and got things over their head, and they do things in a foreign language. And all they're doing is covering it up, so you're missing it. It's not a cover-up. That's easy enough to say. That is goddamn kindergarten. Anybody that's not past that. They are addressing it. It's not a cover-up. They are directly addressing it. Why else is anybody attracted to it? Including those who are not attracted to it, who say, hey, screw that stuff. I'm too smart for that. Right, yeah. Put that man's name down. He's too smart for that stuff. But the real part I didn't want you to miss is, even if we went along with the ordinary view, that wait a minute, let's don't just call that addressing something. You're being far too polite. Genteel, as a matter of fact. That is a cover-up. They are covering up, no matter what you try to call it, they're covering up the fact that they do not know what they purport to know. And where I was trying to drag you 5 minutes ago or so was, what if we took that? Okay. They're covering it up. But now try it this way. If you're smart enough to say that and still hold some balance of a mental view, I'm saying to this person, they're covering it up as opposed to what? See? And then they're supposed to, if they're still saying sort of unusually, unnaturally balanced for a second, they go, I mean, the answer obviously is this. To my question would be, well, they're covering it up. And you're saying as opposed to what? Well, as opposed to actually knowing what's going on. Okay. We're moving right along here in this dialogue. So then I say to them, all right, as opposed to actually know what's going on. Yeah. You mean like you? And again, let's assume that this person holds this unnatural balance for a second. And they go, well, no, not me. No, we're just saying I'm smart enough to criticize. But I'm not smart enough to know what the answer is. You know, I'm smart enough to say, boy, that play sucks. Would you like to come in and rewrite it? Oh, no, I don't know anything about it. Back to where we were. As opposed to what? And they say, well, as opposed to them actually knowing. And then I say to the person, you mean like you? And the person says, well, no, not me, I don't know. And I say, well, as opposed to whom? What's the answer? Those of you who didn't like it, the question for the day to the class was, Life asked his class, the kids, what comes after the letter Z? And one kid said, I know, it's either the spotted horse or the swan. And silence seemed to have reigned supreme and has reappeared. Huh? Nobody knows on what kind of institution, or if you insist, piece of machinery appears such things as swans, spotted horses, and large women with helmets on their head singing. I've never seen an opera performed on a merry-go-round, but some people have led sheltered lives. Again, back to where we were, you see that the person could say churches and all institutions, but in this case churches, are going through all this rigmarole. Part of the great fanfare, the flourishes, is to cover up the fact, as you said, that they do not know what's going on. They do not know what they advertise their business to be. They cannot provide the services. And all it is a cover-up. We go through it one more time. We're about to end up for the night. And I say, as opposed to what? And they say the obvious. Well, it's a cover-up. In other words, a religion is a phony attempt. It is a insincere, a spurious endeavor. All right, as opposed to what? And the person says, well, as opposed to being a real endeavor, that is, actually knowing what's going on. And then I say, you mean like you? And the person says, well, no, not me. Now we're getting to the part about what comes after Z. And I say, all right, not you, but you know that this is a cover-up. And they go, well, yeah, you said as much. And if I say, all right, okay. But it's a cover-up, an admission of inability to provide the service, that they do not know what they're talking about. They do not know the answer to the question that the 40 million people are seeking. Right? All right? As opposed to, and the person says, well, as opposed to knowing. Okay, got that. You mean like you? No, I don't know. As opposed to who? Now here comes the question, what comes after Z? All right, you don't know, but you know that they don't know, right? In other words, we're back to a conversation at a power station. They're discussing it. They don't know it. They think they're discussing religion. You don't know. No. But you know that they don't know. Yeah. But you don't know. No. So, what's left? It's the test. What comes after Z? The obvious, I've already put words on it once, is, all right, so you mean that if you don't know, the other people who do know. Because if you want to take a real side trip, we're getting side-tripped out. But they could go, well, I don't know. And to your last question, they're still responding to me. They say, I not only don't know, but to your other question, I don't really know who does know. But I do know this. Somebody knows. Don't worry about merry-go-rounds. You know, you got cotton candy for brains. To believe, all right, they don't know. The institutions don't know. I hear you. And I ask you, well, yeah, I admit it, I don't know either. So then I say, well, who do you know that does know? And the person goes, you know, I am not an absolute idiot, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I've got the kind of objective turn on mind, so I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not sure exactly who does know. Then if we hadn't run out of tape and I was talking to a person, I'd want to say, if they'd been lucid for that long in that strange way, to say, is there any chance whatsoever that you're listening to yourself? Is there any chance that you can stand next to a dynamo, the juncture box where you are plugged into the power supply, and listen to the energy run? To wonder what comes after Z. It's like everybody saying, what happens after death? God damn, are you an idiot? What comes after Z? A kid knew. The spotty horse, the one that, you know, the one that really goes up and down, or the one that's broke, or the swan. If you don't know, but you're sure somebody else knows, listen to that. You're sure somebody else knows. Then the next question is, well, how would you know him if you saw him? And they'd be the sort that sit there in class and think, why does that kid up front keep bouncing and holler, I know, I know. You don't know, but you know that they don't know. But you're smart enough to know that you don't know. And you don't know who knows, but now you say, but you're sure that somebody does know, you just don't know who they are in particular. There is no doubt, I'll admit this, the sound, for those of you who have never been close to, the sound of some of those large turbines, when they're wound up, can be deafening to the point that you go, huh? Yeah. It's like the volume went out on your TV. Don't you wish?